Did you know your grandparents drove around with a literal death trap built into their car? We're talking about features so dangerous, they were banned, like the button that could fire you through the windshield, or the seatbelt that did more harm than good. You'll never look at a classic car the same way. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why these 10 terrifying features faded into history. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe while you're here. Today, we're strapping in and hitting rewind on automotive history. For decades, car manufacturers prioritized style and novelty over basic safety. The result? A fascinating graveyard of features that range from the utterly bizarre to the truly criminally dangerous. From steering wheels that could impale you to headlights that went dark when you needed them most, get ready to discover the 10 old car features that faded into history. Let's start with a feature that sounds like a joke, but was deadly serious. Feature number 1. Non-collapsible steering columns, also known as the impaler. You can thank the engineers of the late 60s and early 70s for saving your life from this one. Before the 1970s, the steering column was a fixed, solid metal rod that ran straight from the steering wheel down to the gearbox. In a front-end collision, that column had nowhere to go but straight back. It essentially turned the steering wheel into a spear aimed directly at the driver's chest. The National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1966 forced manufacturers to design collapsible steering columns that break apart or compress on impact. This single safety innovation is credited with saving hundreds of thousands of lives, proving that sometimes the simplest engineering change is the most vital. It's hard to believe this feature was standard for nearly 70 years. Feature number 2, dashboard knobs and chrome, also known as the interior shrapnel. So take a look at the gorgeous jet-age dashboard of a 1950s classic. Beautiful, right? But, it's also a landscape of lethal chrome and sharp metal edges. Every knob, every radio button, every piece of decorative trim was solid, unforgiving metal. There was no padding, no energy-absorbing plastic, just hard projectile surfaces. If you were thrown forward during a crash, and remember, seatbelts weren't mandatory yet, your head and face would collide with what was essentially a wall of interior shrapnel. The shift to padded dashboards, recessed controls, and flexible materials wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about finally treating the inside of the car as a life-saving safety cell. Feature number 3. Lap-only seatbelts, also known as the spine splitter. You see, seatbelts were actually invented long before they became mandatory, but for a long time, the standard was the lap-only belt. While it did prevent you from being ejected from the car, which is a good thing, it concentrated all the violent force of a crash onto your abdomen and lower spine. This resulted in devastating, career-ending injuries known as the seatbelt syndrome, causing massive internal damage to organs and severe spinal fractures. This safety feature often traded ejection for crippling injury. It wasn't until Niels Bohlin invented the 3-point seatbelt at Volvo in 1959, and it was widely adopted years later, that the seatbelt became the life-saving device we know today. Feature number 4. Foot-activated headlight dimmers or the blind spot. Remember driving and having to reach to switch your high beams? Well, classic car drivers had a far more awkward method. A foot-activated button on the floor, usually near the left footrest. The concept was simple, but the execution was, well, terrible. To dim your lights for oncoming traffic, you had to take your foot off the clutch or the floor and stomp a tiny metal button. This movement was distracting, especially at night, and often led to delayed dimming, temporarily blinding other drivers. The simple, intuitive lever on the steering column, which is now standard, was a massive upgrade in both convenience and safety. Feature number 5. Vacuum-powered windshield wipers. The rain delay. In many older cars, especially those built before the 1960s, the windshield wipers weren't powered by an electric motor. Instead, they ran on vacuum pressure pulled from the engine's intake manifold. Sounds efficient, right? Well, actually not so much. The moment you accelerated or started driving uphill, the engine's vacuum dropped drastically. That meant the harder you pressed the gas, the slower, or even completely stopped, your wipers would become. So just imagine trying to pass a semi-truck in a downpour. You need full power and clear visibility, but the car literally takes away your ability to see. This feature was honestly less of a convenience and more of a terrifying game of Russian roulette in bad weather. Feature number 6. Fender-mounted side view mirrors. The tiny tweak. Before side view mirrors were mounted neatly on the door where you could actually reach them, they were often perched way out on the fenders. This was mostly for style, kind of mimicking European race cars. The problem? Well, first, they vibrated constantly, making the image blurry. And second, if you needed to adjust them, you literally had to open your window, stretch your arm way out over the fender, and try to tweak a tiny piece of glass while keeping your eye on the road. Eventually, manufacturers moved them closer to the cabin for practicality, which really improved both stability and driver focus. This is perhaps the scariest feature on our list. For decades, cars used a single master brake cylinder. This component pressurizes the brake fluid that goes to all four wheels. If a brake line failed, maybe you ran over a rock or a seal wore out, you lost all brake fluid pressure and your car instantly had zero brakes. Modern cars, by law, use a dual-circuit master cylinder. If one circuit fails, say the front brakes, the other circuit, the rear brakes, still works, giving you partial stopping power and at least a chance to pull over safely. The switch from a single circuit to a dual-circuit system was a mandatory, life-saving design change that, thankfully, just took the risk of catastrophic brake failure off the table. Feature number 8. Vent windows, also known as the wind whistle. So, before air conditioning became standard, the triangular vent window or wing window was a pretty brilliant, if somewhat flawed, solution for ventilation. By swiveling it open, you could scoop air into the cabin like a funnel, or turn it the other way to create a vacuum and pull smoke or hot air out. While not dangerous in the way the others were, these windows were definitely a liability. They were easy to break into, offering a simple way for car thieves to gain access. Plus, they were prone to rattling, creating wind noise, and in some cases, not sealing well, which led to leaks. Once powerful AC units became affordable, the noisy, drafty vent window quickly vanished. Feature number 9. Key start ignitions, also known as the hot wire hazard. In very old cars, the ignition switch was just a simple lock on the dashboard or steering column that only activated the electrical circuit. Crucially, it didn't lock the steering wheel or the transmission. This made the car, well, laughably easy to steal. A simple hot wire and you were off. More importantly, it meant if you left the keys in the ignition and the car was bumped, it could just roll away. The modern ignition, which locks the steering wheel and transmission when the key is removed, was introduced primarily as a theft deterrent, but it also became a fundamental safety and security feature. Feature number 10. Automatic high beams, or the experimental convenience. Believe it or not, some luxury cars in the 1950s and 60s had an early form of automatic high beams, often marketed as the Autronic Eye or Guide-matic. This system used a photoelectric sensor mounted on the dashboard to detect oncoming headlights and automatically dim the high beams. It sounds great, but it was horribly unreliable. The sensor could be easily fooled by streetlights, road signs, or even reflections, often leaving the high beams on and blinding other drivers or dimming them unnecessarily. The system was complex, expensive, and ultimately more annoying and dangerous than just, using your foot. It took decades of computing power to bring this feature back successfully. And there you have it. 10 old car features that prove that progress is driven not just by innovation, but by recognizing and correcting life-threatening design flaws. It's a sobering reminder that every little convenience and every safety rating we take for granted today was hard-won over decades of trial, error, and, unfortunately, tragedy. So next time you climb into your modern car and buckle up that three-point belt, take a moment to appreciate the engineering that keeps you safe. Which of these features surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you love digging into the bizarre side of history and technology, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.